I guess that's the way I like it. That makes me rumble. Don't we rumble? Float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Ah, rumble, young man, rumble. Hey, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna rumble.
This week on Fight Stuff. A fucking kangaroo puts a hit on a hang glider. Could this be the world's longest Postmates? Jorge Masvidal delivers a 3-piece and a soda all the way across the pond to Jolly Hole. And Zeke presents the latest edition of the UFC Hall of Fame, who was also in Twin Peaks, Michael Bisping.
Ah, fucking kangaroos.
Just a beautiful day in the outback.
Some of us like to
Have a
take
bit
a
of
parachute.
Have a bit of a paraglide out in the.
Perfectly natural, perfectly normal.
This extremely looks like a video game,
Welcome to GoPro.
like PUBG,
Yeah.
Battle Royale. Oh, who's that?
What? Oh!
Oh my god!
Two-handed shove. Oh, Kangas, you never disappoint.
I mean, that was a drive-by ruining.
Yeah, and I love how they just this gang of two just is like, oh, there's this guy falling out of the sky. Let's
Yeah.
fuck with him. All right, see you later.
Yeah, that's like this. Well, I guess technically a hop by ruining, but that's what strikes me about it is like they're just. I guess their instinct when a thing falls out of the sky is to go over
Is
and
to
fuck
go
with
shove it, go fight with it. Be like, hey, why don't we go jab it and teep it a little bit and see what's going on?
That seems revelatory about something that just might be in nature. Like if a thing comes out of the sky,
Run towards it.
fight it, kill it,
Fight it, kill it.
Let this be a lesson to aliens.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we kind of do have the same reaction as people. Like,
This viral clip of the week, you brought us. It is a fight clip, technically. Man versus beast.
yeah. As always, we've been trying to bring different fight clips from different genres of viral fight clips, and this one is different in that we're going man versus beast. This one was provided by, of all people, my wife, Christine, who sent this to me while we were watching TV and was like, dude, Fight Stuff podcast. And I love her enthusiasm.
Yeah, I love the significant other, the support of the significant other.
Yeah, so she was, she found this probably on Facebook and was just like, dude, you have to see this.
The clip is entitled "Curious Kangaroo Charges Paraglider." Again, I like "curious" as generous because it seems aggressive.
I would have changed it.
Hostile
Yes.
even.
Someone might say aggressive, hostile, attacking kangaroo.
I mean, I guess the way the kangaroo kind of like
violent kangaroo charges paraglider.
Yeah, I feel like the way it just shows up and leaves, though, maybe it's just a matter of it's turf, you know? Just got to let them know what time it is.
Exactly. It's like, oh, you think this is Fortnite? You're going to just hang out, come down, like paraglide down, and oh yeah, well we're gonna mess with you.
Where are we dropping, boys?
Yeah.
Well, let me know you block you're on, buddy.
So yeah, for those of you at home or those of you who haven't seen the Instagram clip, essentially it's a regular GoPro video, but this guy probably has it attached to his helmet or his chest as he's parachuting down. Maybe he was skydiving. Would you think?
I think the video says paragliding, but it looks like just a parachute. I don't know the difference.
I
honestly,
don't know
One
either.
comes out of a plane, I guess, and one would be
Just
jumping
like
off a hill.
Base jumping, sort of. Yeah, I guess it would be.
I guess I've seen those videos where they go down the hill, and it seems
They
like
just sort of jump off and.
Yeah, but it seems more about covering like distance, you know?
Right.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Which looks terrifying. What
I mean, it all does.
People.
But so it looks like a normal video, probably somewhere in Australia from the looks and sounds of it.
Assume out in the outback somewhere.
Yeah. And out of nowhere, you start tracking a couple of objects that come slowly barreling towards this guy as he approaches the ground. And what do you know? It's a couple of kangaroos.
Looks like maybe a mother and a joey.
Could be.
Like a juvenile with that. What are they called? Marsupials.
Marsupials, yes.
Marsupial martial arts. Marsupial arts.
Marsupial arts is what we just witnessed.
Yeah. So he's just gliding down gently and cutely, and I guess, having a lovely day in Australia when he's just accosted by a couple
of kangaroos who attempt to box him out a little bit and ultimately end up shoving him. I'm kind of surprised it didn't escalate nearly as quickly as.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's like they have a sense of humor.
Yeah,
they're
It's almost like the kangaroos are just like, hey, let's go mess with this guy.
Yeah,
and they're just like.
Maybe they thought he was like some big weird bird, and the mom was like, "That's a bird of prey that I've never seen, and I gotta make sure that thing stays away from my child."
let's go run towards it.
Yeah. Crikey. Well, all right. Lovely. That
All right,
rules.
so that was our viral clip of the week. Shall we move into This Week in Sports?
Yeah, I love This Week in Sports. This Week in Sports, UFC Fight Night happened in London.
UFC London.
And there's always a ton of going on, but we sort of pick and choose. And we're basically just going to talk about Jorge Masvidal, all things Jorge Masvidal, like everybody else is, I assume, this week.
Right. So I just want to say that, like, I was hanging out on Twitter, which I rarely do.
Mm-hmm. It's a toxic place.
It definitely is. It doesn't do me any good for my mental health. But of course, I couldn't help but accidentally scroll through because the fight actually happened at it probably started around 10 o'clock our time on Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
that's right. So I thought that was strange too. You always forget about the time difference. I was expecting fights to be up that night, but yeah, they're all done for lunch, basically.
Yeah, so I was coming back from the gym. I'm like, oh, let's see what's going on. The fight had already happened. And the clip that everyone was retweeting and sending around was a clip of Masvidal giving an interview.
Yes.
And in the middle of the interview is like, excuse me, I'll be right back.
Well, so, okay, the thing I saw a lot of was the general sentiment of way to waste all the good work you just did. Because he had an amazing fight against Darren Till. Darren Till, who's really a great fighter, but I think he's on a string of losses now, though, which sucks.
Yeah.
This was a good fight. This was like a really good back and forth, I thought.
So the fight itself was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, as a fight fan, I loved it. I also loved the storyline of Darren Till, fighting as the hometown guy in London. London crowds are awesome at the O2 Arena.
Ole.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful soccer match.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's the best.
I mean, that's actually why I like watching like Ricky Hatton fight, just because the Ricky Hatton like boxing fans are so like into it.
Yes.
I love it.
As long as you don't let yourself think about soccer hooligans in general,
No,
how racist those crowds are and how scary it would be to be among them as they get drunker and drunker in the fights.
Oh, I would never want to be there for any of that. Like anytime there's a fight in Vegas and Connor's on there, that's the last place I would want to be.
Oh, yeah. How many dumb brawls happen after a Conor McGregor fight?
Oh, yeah.
100, easily. I have the numbers.
Yeah.
But anyway, Masvidal knocks out Till with a really beautiful, strange little footwork combo. We were watching it. We watched it over and over again. There's a couple things that Masvidal does in this fight that I think are super interesting, and this might get a little inside fighting, I guess. But one is Till's a good striker, and Masvidal, going into this, you'd think Masvidal is the person who should beware his striking.
Yeah, let's also make sure to note like his reach advantage too, which is pretty evident. Till's reach advantage, and so he uses that effectively, especially as a southpaw. So for the first part of the fight, he's using that straight left down the middle to connect on Masvidal pretty regularly.
Oh, Till is.
Yeah.
Yes. And you pointed out this too. Masvidal's really good at that trigger response. Basically, working combos and training such that anytime someone fires something at you, you're shooting right back. You're sending something back out to fill the gap, to break up the rhythm of their combination that's coming at you.
Yeah, trigger point counters have been like a relatively new part of my game, and it's pretty much as soon as somebody touches you, you immediately reflexively you're striking back.
Right, firing down the pipe, taking the line. You see Masvidal use his own jab in a sort of like shovey jab a couple times in a way that I think is really interesting. Mm-hmm. It shoots out there like a normal jab would, but it seems to have a little less pop on it, and there's no drop. Like it's straight out and in, and it seems like he's using it really well to keep the distance and prevent Till from being able to set up his combos that he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does this thing almost like a Superman punch earlier in the fight too, and then to great effect of winning the fight, where he takes a switch stance, or whichever stance he's in, he ends up switching by the end. Because I think earlier in the fight, he was back the other way. He was standing southpaw.
He was definitely, so he starts off in a conventional stance, which, from the looks of it, that's his...
Yes, but for this final combo, I believe he was standing southpaw also.
He was standing forward. Southpaw for sure, strong hand forward.
And so what he does is he fires his right hand, and at the same time that he's as the right hand is landing, and it doesn't even really need to land hard, it just needs to take up his vision, it just needs to distract him for a second. His feet are switching so that his left foot is coming forward, which puts him in a position to cross a ton of distance with that left hand hook. Which prior to that, Till's already in his subconscious mind thinking that left hand is out of range based on where this jab is. But when Masvidal switches his feet so cleanly in this little hop, skip, step, suddenly that left hand is right in range and Till eats it hard.
Connects out. I think that shot, that left, I guess it's a left straight.
Hook, left hook,
like
big hook.
I was kind of hooky. Yeah.
Looks like a hook to
Actually,
me.
you know what? You're right. It is a left hook. He's out on his feet. That shot puts him to sleep. And then everything else, he hits him on the way down, too.
He hits another big hit on the way down, which is, that always bums me out to see. I totally understand it. That's the nature of fighting. You stand the guy until you're in there.
Well, I'm saying he's out. As he's falling, he hits him again. And then once he's on the ground, he gets him again. And I mean, that's probably the hardest part about watching Muay Thai fights for me is like when you're dumping somebody on the ground and you're kicking at their head as they drop, dropping. Like that just hurts my soul.
Oh, yeah, it's brutal.
But yeah, that's exactly what happens here with his hooks.
The first response I think I saw about it when I saw the win thing was somebody saying like Masvidal by murder or something like that, KO by murder, and it's one of those nasty knockouts. If you watch it in real time, we were remarking about it. The sound Till's head makes as it hits the mat is just like, well, that's the auditorium is silent. That's the biggest thing.
It happens, and you just hear whoop whoop, and you're just like, oh no. And then there's the other shot that comes in.
The whoop is nasty, but I think you're right. The whoop is extra bad because it's basically pointing out how quiet the auditorium is.
Yeah.
And so this crowd that was all on Till's side, and we were discussing that then too, the mental pressure, I think you'd rather be fighting. I don't think home team advantage exists in fighting.
No.
I think it's so much more pressure to perform. Whereas I think in other sports, maybe I could see that because you have a team also. Like team sports, home team advantage makes a little bit of sense because you have camaraderie as a team. And out there's something about fighting that you need to take risks to be the best at it. And the only way you can take risks is by kind of not giving a fuck.
100%.
And if you are at home and the crowd's going like, ole, I think there's something about that can create, for me, there's different mindsets. Maybe some people would be real gassed up by it and feel good. I think that would create so much more pressure to I'd rather be the invader every time.
100. When it comes to fight sports, 100%. When it comes to team sports, you want home field advantage 100% of the time. In sports, in football, soccer, it is like a statistic that is like calculatable ad infinitum how important home field advantage is. Like there are teams like the New Orleans Saints that have like such a high winning percentage when they play at their home field due to like sound considerations, due to like the fact that they know the field, like all those different things those small things that can affect the outcome.
That's a good point.
Great.
Though.
But in fighting, you're 100% right. It's like, to me, it feels like the pressure is on.
Yeah.
And you have so many voices in your head, whether it's like, I have to look good in front of my friends and family. I can't take chances. The last thing I want to do is get knocked out in front of my friends and family.
Yeah.
And if that's in your head, you are fucked.
And I think Masvidal gets in his head a little bit. Early in the fight, I think Till was the first one to start the shit talky like faces and stuff.
Yeah.
Masvidal hits him with a couple crisp shots, and Till goes like, oh, what do you go? Does something like, does the hands wide. What do you got early in the fight?
To be fair, Till goes out to touch gloves. Masvidal meets him with a teep to the nuts.
Dude, that is, I can't believe we didn't even talk about that.
Can't believe, okay. So traditionally, and for those of you who are relative laymen's, normally at the start of a fighting sport, specifically mixed martial arts, there will be a touch of gloves at the center of the ring.
Yeah.
Good fight, good sportsmanship.
Yeah. And you'll see the occasional, I think, piece of shit who decides that's the time to swing.
Right.
Which then everybody else is like, yeah, you're in the fight. You're right. Guard up at all times. But it's still a shitty thing to do. Let each other settle in. Have a little proper scrap.
Listen, I respect you. You respect the warrior in me. Acknowledges and respects the warrior in you.
Namaste.
Right? This is my stupid hot yoga shit that's invaded my brain.
No, it's good. I'm a huge supporter of this.
Right. So, but Masvidal out of the gate.
Having none of that.
No, thank you. Let's have a fight. And jumps out with a jumping front kick, also known as a teep, for those of you who are familiar with Muay Thai or mixed martial arts, straight to the nuts.
Straight to the nuts. Some people may have suggested he was going for an oblique kick. I also think that it was not. I think it was a teep intended. That's got to be a record. I wonder if anybody's tracked the record for the fastest
low blow in the history of mixed martial arts.
Yeah, because that has to be it.
Yeah.
Out of the gate. And it's absolutely hilarious.
Right.
I mean, it is like the most schoolyard, just ding, 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 kick you in the nuts. So good.
There are so many viral clips from this fight.
So good. But then, briefly before Masvidal knocking him out, they have another little scrappy little exchange where Masvidal, I think he slips the shots. I don't think he eats them, and he gives him a little like kissy face. And I think he it looks to me like he's in his head a little bit.
Sure, especially soon after that kick on the restart, the restart. What ends up happening is Masvidal eats a giant shot from tilt and gets dropped in the first round. And so the fact that he gets back to his feet over the course of that round, but yeah, there's definitely some mugging that's happening as he's attempting to get in his head, and he totally does.
Yeah. So interesting fight. The thing that happened after the fight, which became what most people were talking about, was, well... should we just listen to what
Let's just listen to what Masvidal
has
to say. Now, again, may I set this up a little bit with the clip that came to my attention? So Masvidal giving an interview, all of a sudden is like, excuse me, I'll be right back, walks down a pathway and immediately starts fighting with someone I didn't recognize at the time, and in the middle of an interview starts a fight with another person after winning his first fight. Here's his thoughts on that.
Yes, in his own words.
So I'm doing my interview, and this hooligan comes by saying some stuff, and July, get your ass kicked, to July, and I go, maybe, bro, whatever, because maybe I want to kick your ass in April. Maybe I don't want to wait till July. Maybe I don't even want to fight you in a prize ring because you're not worth a training camp. I'll just fight you here because you're a scrub, you know? So I tell him, just say it to my face, like, oh, man, you're saying it, walking away. That's not, like, we're both men, you know? And as I'm walking up to him, I got my hands behind my back to signal, I'm not coming here for problems. But he put his hands up like this, it's on video, and he walks towards me. Well, where I'm from, if you do that, you're going to punch me in the face, and that's not going to happen, Leon. You're a dork, you're JV beta, you are what you are, bro. You're just a loser in life, man. You're not going to get a hit off me, you know. So I gave him the 3-piece with the soda, and then just glide out of there, you know. And then some of his friends tried to sucker punch me. Those guys did a big mistake.
3-piece with a soda.
So good. I mean, there's so much in this clip that I appreciate.
And some of it is kind of cringeworthy, too.
A little bit. I don't think there's too much of it that's that cringeworthy.
Okay,
for me.
I mean,
what do you get?
What was the comment he made about the beta guy? Like,
oh, that's
like,
shitty. That's
like,
shitty. Little JV beta.
Little
That's
JV
head games.
beta.
That's
No, but
games.
I mean, that's what he's doing. But
okay, two things. One, the bubble, baby.
Yes, the bubble that we
He's
talk
talking
about.
about
I
the
don't know if we talked
bubble.
about it on the podcast, but we talked about in self-defense, the personal bubble.
I think we talked about it. I think we talked about it early, but it is a thing that this idea that you have a personal space, that if somebody comes into it with their hands up, that's attacking you. You don't have to wait till you're attacked.
You don't have to wait till they physically touch you.
You don't have to wait till somebody's, which I don't know legally what the truth is.
Well,
but I think if
PS
somebody charges you, I think that like counts.
I've heard different things. Like if somebody balls up their hand into a fist and is approaching you, that is like
yes.
assault.
Which PS,
but batteries when they make contact.
Yeah.
Again, we are not lawyers.
I don't. Yeah, we take no responsibility for the legal decisions that you make.
Right.
In a litigious society, this is part of the reason to learn open hand strikes, though.
Yes,
According
exactly.
to one of my first martial arts instructors, he used to tell us to learn this open hand strike, so then you could say, "Officer, I mean, you can ask anyone here. He attacked me. I just tried to push him off me. I just my hands are out and." But you know what you did.
You did.
You know,
you had a palm strike.
Turned your hip on that thing and aimed with your wrist bone. But obviously, 3-piece and a combo is the other huge thing out of here. God, I love that. God, that's so good. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Great
and that
combination.
is what happens.
Jab, cross, hook.
Those hands are flying, too, in the video.
Yeah, they are.
He's right, too, that he goes over with his hands behind his back. I did not see the other guy's hands up, but I couldn't really see the other guy. The other guy in question was Leon Edwards, who had just fought Gunnar Nelson that night and won in a close split decision. And that's why it's definitely shit-talky, with the JV comments, the beta comments, because Leon Edwards is a respectable record. He's at 17-3 now in the UFC.
In mixed martial arts, that's an amazing record.
Yeah.
Especially at the highest level.
He beat Donald Cerrone at his last thing in a decision. Yeah.
Wow.
So certainly not a scrub, and certainly Masvidal just seems to be pretty good at this getting in people's heads thing, because it really looks like he does to Darren Till to me.
Well, he does it to two people. He does
and then
it
he
to
does
Till,
it to Leon Edwards.
and then does it to Edwards.
Yeah. He cut him, too, in that little scrap, apparently.
Well, good.
He was treated
Good
at the
on
scene. If the guy came at him, then yes. And also, yeah, don't be. I agree. There's something about this Masvidal one that doesn't bother me. Kind of, I guess, because it's like he drew first blood with the shit talking. I'm on record here that I fucking don't like this new thing of this shit talking.
The WWE.
You can feel
Yeah.
Till's doing it. And, you know, British guys do have a special way of shit talking that it's hard not to
love it. Exactly. And well, we'll get into it in our third segment today.
We shall. But I think we're going to segue into that third segment pretty quickly here because the magic of British guys, British fighters, that sort of lock stock quality to them, you're going to discuss, because another thing that happened at this UFC
was the induction of Michael Bisping into the UFC Hall of Fame in the modern era wing, as they call it.
Yes.
I like how they have different wings.
I didn't realize that.
Is the UFC Hall of Fame a physical space, by the way? I assume it's in Vegas.
It must be. It must be. I guess it doesn't must be. It needn't must be.
Yeah.
Because, it's more of an idea than
it could be a hallway at the Performance Institute.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I would really like to go to next time we're in Vegas. Just drop on by.
Super in, yeah.
Be just like, hey, we're hanging out. So anyways, today's show and tell.
Yes.
Michael the Count Bisping.
The Count. What a good, cool,
Yeah.
The Count. You could be a duke, you could be a lord, but the Count.
Ooh, maybe I'll change my nickname to the Lord.
Zeke
the Lord Thomas.
I thought it'd be really funny if you named your child the Lord.
Ooh.
Like one name.
Okay.
So that when he was at school, it'd be like, the Lord, present.
Yes, please.
You have to call your kid the Lord. The Count. He should come out with I think Bisping really fucked up by not growing a big mustache and wearing a monocle to the ring, to be honest.
Okay, well, here's what's funny about his nickname. In doing research for this, I was having such a hard time finding out why he was called the Count, because I was like, there's no part of his personality that really sort of like dials in,
except for being British,
right? And that's about it.
Like like that guy, bare knuckle boxing, Lenny McLean.
Yes,
they called him the Governor. I was governor on the cobbles. He was the baddest bare knuckle boxer that was alive, for a long time. And they seem to, England, Europe in general, but especially England, is very class conscious. Mm-hmm. So it's just funny to know that a lot of their nicknames seem to reflect this class,
this aristocracy, this royal heritage,
a title, sir, knights are united. It's funny.
And now coming to the cage with a record of 14-1, Sir Jarrett Sleep.
Yeah. Dude, Sir Michael Bisping. I could see Bisping getting
knighted at some point. I would think so.
Just more charity work or something.
Sure, yeah. Well, let's see what he does with his acting career.
Yes. All right, so tell me let's talk about the legend that is Michael Bisping.
Well, let's first of all address his nickname, since we're there already. Yes. So a quote from Bisping was, "My old manager told the ring announcer to introduce me as the Count. I said no at first, but I'm actually a count in Poland. Grandfather was a Polish count.
What?
It embarrasses me a little bit. I made the mistake of telling someone at school, and I was subsequently made fun of."
Oh, that's so fucking good.
Not even an English count.
Yeah. Well,
a
amazing,
Polish count.
But a count nonetheless.
Yes. Yeah.
And lest we forget, Europe, we think of them as different countries because they are.
Right.
But that would be like Texas and California and Colorado being different countries.
Sure.
I always lose that sense that it is sort of unique that the United States of America is the same as like the European Union in a sense.
In a sense,
and
sure.
that we just share this sense of American a lot more than. But in terms of proximity, population, really, the United States is much closer to a collection of countries the way Europe is.
Yeah, I could.
So I'm just saying, I don't think it's that discounting. I don't think it's that what's the word I'm looking for? Discrediting that his countship
from Poland
comes from Poland.
Yeah.
They're all kind of. It would be like, I'm in California, but I'm a lord in
Texas.
I have a small duchy in Colorado.
Oh, you have a what? I'm sorry.
A duchy. DUCH. That's what a duke has.
Okay.
Or a duchess.
Oh, okay.
A duchess and a duke. They have a duchy.
Oh, okay. Of course.
Yes, learn words on this podcast. No, but the count I also like for fighting because it's like down for the count.
You're down for the count.
Yeah,
I'm
give
going
him
to
the count.
I
I'm the
personally
count.
going to count you out
Yeah.
after I knock you down.
1. I mean, that is.
2.
I would be much more about standing 8 counts if they had to do it like the
Dude, that would be
Count
amazing.
Chocula or whatever.
You know what? Let's
The
write
count.
somebody in boxing and be like, hey, so here's the deal. You want to make boxing popular again? Bring the Sesame Street count.
I don't know why, like, those weird bar wrestling shows don't do more of that. The ref, just a Halloween show where he dresses and he's doing the 3 count for the pin and he goes, 1. And everyone's like, count faster. It's a hardcore match, count faster.
2.
You get the whole crowd going with you.
Come on. And he's like, and then the shoulders up. Like,
3. Eyes up. Doesn't count. I didn't finish the ahs.
All right, so on the docket of things to do this year at Halloween, let's do a wrestling show.
I'm so into that. How fucking cool would that be?
Yeah, we'll talk to Corey. Corey DeMeyers. We'll make it happen.
Oh, yeah. We got some wrestling buddies.
Exactly. So anyways, Michael the Count Bisping, originally, he fights out of England, but weird fact, he was born in Cyprus because his dad was in the military.
Greece? Wow.
Yes.
Again, more to my point, though, about European Union is just the United States on the other side of the pond.
6'1", officially fights for the most part, spent most of his time at middleweight at 185, obviously dipped down to, he's fought a couple different weight classes as well.
Yeah. I remember some of those cuts. I just remember people discussing that. Oh, those fighters in that range, I think, well, like I'm not a fighter, but I'm doing jiu-jitsu this coming week at middleweight, which for IBJJF is a little lower, but it's the same thing, like 181 with the gi on. And
again, just for some of the laymen,
yes,
we need to specify for
IBJJF, which is the biggest gi
governing
federation,
body, yeah.
Of traditional Brazilian jiu-jitsu, very Brazilian. They have gi, which is where you wear a sort of pajamas. You wear kimono. It's a heavy canvas, what you are used to seeing people doing karate in and stuff like that. And you're allowed to use that for throws as a handle or chokes
for
or
grips and chokes.
whatever.
And compared to no gi,
usually performed in shorts of some kind and a rash
shirtless
guard
if you're
or
in
spats.
Brazil.
Yeah, in Brazil. And so there's less to hang on to. It's closer to traditional wrestling in a singlet.
submission wrestling, yeah, things like that. But again, you can't grab the shorts. You can't use that as one of your levers.
Right. There's some federations, there's a few rules that are a little bit like you're allowed to grab your short. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, so in some things, like the one I'm doing this weekend, they weigh you with your outfit on. So when you do the weight class, you have to count for an
Up
extra
to like
4 pounds.
Wow, up to
depending
4
on your
pounds.
gi, how heavy your gi
Yeah,
is. Just to be safe,
Yeah.
So I'm doing that, and I've noticed in this cutting, I really could, if I was a psycho, I could totally, depending how you want to feel, how dehydrated you want to feel, those middleweight fighters, you really can go up or down. I could bulk up to 205 probably if I wanted to, and I could also cut down really, not easily, but also not that crazily to the under 170 classes. So I think Bisping...
You'd be skin and bones, man.
I'd be skin and bones. I'd be skin and bones, but I can make it. I'd be dehydrated. I probably wouldn't feel good. But so you get a lot of those things. Bisping, it makes sense. A lot of these fighters. George St. Pierre was like that.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Cross these weight classes.
Right, and in fact, they met at a higher weight class.
Yes.
Which
they
is
fight
where
at?
we saw jacked George St.
Yeah,
Pierre.
that's right. Dude.
With all that added muscle
All that
mass.
maple syrup.
Yes. So, Michael Bisping, fighting out of Manchester, England, had a remarkable record of 30 wins, 9 losses. And
This
this
is a remarkable record. Whew.
especially in modern mixed martial arts.
Especially the caliber of people he's fighting, too.
That's right. And his training was not... didn't come out of nowhere. It's not like he came out of the bare knuckle scene and was like, oh, I'm going to learn a little jiu-jitsu. He started training jiu-jitsu at the age of 8, which is sort of just like,
whoa,
wait a second. Like, what year would that have been? Like, he's roughly my age, so like...
You think it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu in its modern form, though? Or was it like Japanese jiu-jitsu,
I think it's
small
probably
circle?
more Japanese jiu-jitsu based off the research that I saw.
I'd assume. I mean, because for his age, it couldn't have been around. It wasn't that popular then.
So, yeah, no, exactly. I was looking it up, and I always thought he was much older, but like literally born February of 79 like me. And so he's 40, and he started jiu-jitsu at 8, so it was probably 1989. How popular was jiu-jitsu in England?
Yes. Well, that's an interesting Lovato Jr. He also started with traditional martial arts and, entered fighting pretty late in his life, considering I think it wasn't until he was like 32. I think that but it's a similar story where he did JKD when he was younger, and Bruce Lee, shout out to Bruce Lee as like the original MMA proponent. He famously said he came to the States after doing Wing Chun Kung Fu and said, all you needed was boxing and wrestling and you'd beat most people. He was the first one to really notice that. Right. And so early JKD incorporates a lot of that. There's a lot of shoot fighting as well as the trapping and stuff that's more kung fu-y. But it is interesting. Some of these people, if you're 40 now in the sport and you started when you were a kid, then you're coming from those traditional backgrounds, which is also people like George St. Pierre, the karate guys, the Kyokushin guys, which continues to be fun. I really just, the fanboy in me, the lover of the mythos in me, I get so excited when anybody with some kind of traditional background does well.
Because like when we were growing up, that was the thing to do. And it's not now the modern young person who's growing up takes mixed martial arts. Yeah. It would be so rare. It's very rare to see somebody be like, I'm going to study, Tong Sudo or Taekwondo. I mean, there's still pockets of it, but because of the popularity of mixed martial arts, so much of that has kind of fallen by the wayside as people are like, oh, I really like learning submission holds and wrestling, and there's a lot of usefulness in it.
Sidebar to that, just a thought that brings up for me. I've been thinking a lot about what rank means in martial arts. If you have a black belt or something like that. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, traditionally a black belt is very well respected. It's very hard to get. If you have it, it means you can really fight with it. And a lot of other martial arts, that's not really true anymore. In some martial arts, it's just different, means different things. Judo, typically they used to say a black belt just meant you were starting. Black belt just was supposed to mean you had competency in
you had a fundamental understanding
of the full spectrum of judo, basically. Right. So all the throws and whatever, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're the best in the world. That being said, judo guys are usually pretty good. If you're judo black belt, it really means something compared to some of these mall dojo black belts and things with TKD or karate that kids have. I always think that's the funniest thing. If you tell someone you do jiu-jitsu and you're like, I'm a blue belt, right? And a blue belt in jiu-jitsu is tough. A blue belt in jiu-jitsu can really fuck people up if they don't know what they're doing. And they'll be like, oh yeah, my son has one of those. My 14-year-old son, he's got a black belt in Taekwondo, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's great.
You're like, I'm sure.
That's great. It's a little different. But my point about it was Bisping, if you start martial arts when you're 8, there's so many people out there who do that, who are black belts, who are really, I guess what I was going to get at is, what is a black belt supposed to mean? Your ability to teach. And there's something different between fighters and just also being a black, like you can be extremely good at fighting. I feel like if you go to learn techniques about fighting, what they should do is give you a better chance no matter what against anyone. But that's all you can really guarantee about learning about fighting is a better chance. Because if somebody's super athletic and knows how to fight, you're in trouble. And I always just think about that. I don't know. There's this aspect of you always find someone better than you, but that if you get a black belt in jiu-jitsu, among black belts, there's black belts who are beating other black belts in tournaments all the time.
Sure.
And that just because you have a black belt doesn't mean that you are going to beat everyone in the world.
Right.
But also, it's not supposed to mean that. I don't know. I get in that headspace where I'm just like, what does this rank mean? I still have tough days. I still get beaten. I still would get my ass kicked by one of these other like champions of the world, I'm sure. So what's the point? Or something like that. But you forget, it's sort of like learning knife defenses or something. If you believe learning karate knife defenses is going to stop you from getting cut by a knife, you're out of your mind.
Right.
What it might do is give you a slightly better chance to survive should you be in a horrible situation like that.
Right. The famous quote, nobody wins in a knife fight, is 100% right.
Yeah.
And the same thing with like any other sort of confrontation. It's
Right.
like, listen, there's a chance. There's a slight chance you'll be untouched.
It's just interesting
it's
to think.
infinitesimal.
Yeah.
Infinitesimal? Yeah, that's what I meant to say. You know what I mean.
Infinitesimal.
Yeah, I'm making up words today.
It works.
It's all right.
I was just thinking Bisping, there's probably some other kids who did karate with him, did jiu-jitsu with him when he was 8, who kept going, maybe teach jiu-jitsu somewhere now, but aren't Bisping?
Yeah.
And I just think that's interesting, that there's something about that we acknowledge that you can learn amazing techniques and they will make you better. But I don't know. The myth of the ninja, of the Mr. Miyagi kind of thing, that some people are just going to be so good at technique no matter what, they'll beat everyone in the world. That being said, the flip side, I think, is also true. I think there are some people out there who never decided to be a professional fighter, who are just these secret beasts who they just wasn't something they wanted to do.
I trained with a guy at the Brentwood Club who, he's probably like 6'1", maybe 180 pounds, maybe. Such a beast in no-gi under Eddie Bravo. He's a brown belt, but in gi, I guess he had been a black belt forever. No one mentioned this shit to me, by the way, when I'm rolling with him and getting tapped every 4 seconds. And he's a sweetheart guy, just being like, trapping me everywhere. And I'm just getting so frustrated. I'm like, dude, I know this guy's a brown belt, but like, just catching me so easily from every single position. It's like, oh, got you in banana splits, got you here. And he's not being a dick about it.
Right.
But he's just so calm and collected. And every time I think I have an angle on him, but he looks like any other guy.
Yeah.
Any other guy. And the fact that he's such a secret ninja just really sticks with me, especially because we're like so into like physical culture and like all that stuff. And it's like kind of unnecessary at a certain level.
Yeah, I remember I heard about this guy in the Henzo lineage over in New York, which is a lot of the guys, the Danaher guys and, Gordon Ryan, these really high level grapplers right now those are tough gyms. They were saying there's a guy who teaches, I think he runs Bronx Jiu-Jitsu or something like that in the same family. And they were just saying that he's a secret badass. He's like a black belt in his 40s or something like that. And that they'll get top level guys around the world come to train with them who just think he's another guy. And they go, oh, you rolled with so-and-so today? Yeah, he smashes everybody. And that's just so cool and interesting to me to think alongside, I don't know, that being a fighter is a whole other thing. It's 100%. A whole other sport. How do you do in the cage with the mind game, with the anxiety? I've been suffering horrible anxiety just leading up to an amateur jiu-jitsu tournament. I mean, there's no money I'm going to earn from this. I'm paying money to do it.
There.
Yeah, it's something I want to do as a personal thing. But if you did that, you're just a different kind of person. If you thrive or even just can overcome that anxiety leading up to this thing you're going to do.
Much less the training that goes into it, too.
Yes.
We always talk about it. Like, the difference between a fighter and someone who knows how to fight are two completely different things. And there is an ocean in between those people.
Yeah.
When people first come to the gym that I train at, they're like, oh, are you a fighter? I'm like, nope.
No way.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.com. And they like take a step back. And I was like, no, I'm just a guy who knows some stuff. Like,
yes.
But there's a difference. Like, I don't enjoy getting hit. I don't have the headspace or the energy or the personality to do what these guys do, which is why I have so much respect for them. Like, even at the lowest levels, even when some guy's fighting at the Sportsman's Launch for $500 a night in front of his friends, I'm like, my hat goes off to him, because you know what? That is that walk. That 30-foot walk is the walk I have not made, and will not.
Yeah, the 30-foot walk and to me, just the headspace of the lead up to it is so fucking. I'm grateful. I did take a look at my brackets for this weekend, and it's great because the division's like 18 people or something like that, which is so much easier to me because it's so much more like, I'm just gonna go roll.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fucking scared and stuff. And I'm going to clear my head. And then I'm just going to roll and fuck shit up and see what happens. It's the first tournament of brown belt. Who cares? It's harder. I did tournaments in the past that were smaller tournaments, and I knew there was only one guy. Oh. So it was like, I know I'm going to go fight this guy. And both of us are going to be like, I'm fighting that. And it's so much more intense. When you have to,
it feels like a little bit more like a fight. Like, you're just like, I almost feel I can watch video of this guy because of the internet and YouTube.
Exactly. I almost feel like it's the workouts that fighters need to do, I would imagine, are almost a relief, because for me, the only thing that's been giving me solace and helps deal with the anxiety is going to class, is going to train, because that's all I can do about it is take these horrible anxieties and just do my work. Just show up, just be on the mat. It's so much less scary and anxious when you're in it. When you're just doing it, it's when you sit at home and you think about it and that kind of a thing.
I have to do this thing in a couple days.
Whew.
I have to do this thing in a couple days.
Making sure you're on weight, being scared that you're going to be too tired because of the food, or you're going to create a headspace for yourself where I think I'm too tired because I've been tired. It's just insane. So I don't know. That's super interesting to me. It takes all types. I feel confident about myself. One of the nicest things a teacher ever said about me was that when I was a teenager, it was like, oh, you'll fight anyone. Meaning like people would come in off the street, big guys, whatever, people in the class, and you could put me with them and knew that I would at least scrap. I wouldn't, even though I was like this 147-pound teenager or whatever.
Right.
Speaking like as a 180-something guy now as I've grown in my full body. So just a scrawny teenager. But I am not the person who signs up and is like, let's do this. I want to do this all the time, be in this anxious headspace all the time. That to me is incredible strength of will. I mean,
just even making the decision to do it, much less actually stepping in there, is just incredible.
I think also maybe for me personally, jiu-jitsu is so much more, the lessons are so much more about being beaten, are so much more about being humbled and broken and knowing that's a thing that happens to everybody. And the lessons of that and that I think to be a fighter, even if you aren't a shit talky fighter, which I still don't think is cool most of the time, you still have to have more of a thing about I'm a winner. It's the winning that I'm in this for. I'm here to dominate.
I am a prize fighter.
Yeah.
Like
I like to go be part of the scrap. I like to be in the exchange. I like to be co-creating this thing with someone that we discover things about ourselves and the world and have these journeys.
Sure. I don't know if you've been looking at the upcoming fight this Friday, Vince Cachero's fight. Vince the Anomaly
Vince
Cachero.
is the shit, dude. Yeah, he's fucking awesome.
Good friend of ours. Get the occasional chance to train with him. But his opponent dropped out recently before this fight, and another guy from a lighter weight class stepped up to fight him. And Vince, rather than going the shit-talking way, was like, I'm so excited that this guy is coming to step up in a firefight.
Yes.
He's like, this guy's going to bring a fight. And I was like, look at you turning this fight game on its head for the LFA title.
The way Vince talks about his upcoming fights and his opponents is, to me, the ideal. Because he says, I'm here to scrap. I want to blow shit up. And I'm so excited. Here's another guy who also likes to swing for the fences. And I know we're going to have a fucking barn burner. That's the attitude that makes me excited to see fights.
I am looking forward to Friday night.
Yeah.
To see his fight, man.
Yeah, it's like, wouldn't you much rather see a fight with two fighters who are joyously and without any restraint going to try to tear each other apart? And that's what they're going there to do? Like they're going in there to put on a show and go for it with each other, not just win, not crush the other one, not any of that. I think that's just beautiful. That to me is that's the
ultimate expression of the sport.
Yes.
Of sport fighting, that's what it is. It's like, hey, you're going to bring what you bring, I'm going to bring what I bring, and we're going to put on a show.
We talk a lot about the damage people do to their bodies. We talk a lot about the silliness and that thought I had about samurai, like preparing themselves to go destroy their bodies. But there's also this ritual burning aspect of it that is beautiful. That is, these two people go in there, and when they really go after each other, they're experiencing something that the rest of us get to experience too. We get to see these people. It's
strangely cathartic. You're just like, they become, a character for you to like root for or against. And like, it's strange how cathartic it is.
They're our
like,
avatar. I was just thinking, even if I lose in a match in jiu-jitsu or something, I got to be part of making somebody a winner. And I don't do them any favors by rolling over. If I think it's a great failure if I do that and they win, if I just didn't do my all. But if I go as hard as I can and I'm beaten, what a beautiful thing I get to be part of. Sure. Because I put everything out there I had, and I was just, he was better this day or she was better this day. But also that person got to beat me at my hardest.
Yes.
And how fucking cool to be able to be part of that for someone else.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's probably why I'm not a fighter, is because I don't think about, for a lot of reasons.
You're not obsessed with winning.
But I'm not obsessed with winning. Yeah. Which is I think about that a lot, like the Daniel Plainview thing of there will be blood. I hate most people. I see nothing in them worth liking. And I think of him, and I think of people like Michael Jordan, who are the greatest undeniably, but were so angry and bitter and like never forgot a slight.
People talk about Jordan in such idyllic, like heroic terms, but he was not a good guy to a lot of people. Took shit super personally, was hyper competitive.
Yeah. And I wonder about that. It bums me out to think that.
But I think you have to be in order to be, and again, total speculation, to be so iconic in the sport, to be that dominant, I think you might have to be that egocentric. You have to be that obsessed, because not only was he talented, but he put in the work and cataloged every, like you said, every slight against him, where even during his Hall of Fame speech, where he's like, he didn't, in his Hall of Fame speech, as he's being inducted, I don't know if, have you seen this?
Tell me about it again.
Sure.
I know,
so in his Hall of Fame speech, Michael Jordan doesn't thank a lot of people for helping him get to where he is. He doesn't really reflect upon the great people he worked alongside. He starts talking shit from the podium about like different sports writers who were just like, hey man, remember Time Magazine, 1996? What's that all about? Like, and it's really telling about who he is as his character, but also the mindset that you have to have in order to get to that level of the sport, at least for him. I'm not saying it's for everybody.
For him. And because that does seem reflected in many aspects of society, is whoever's there was this German general who ended up being a Nazi general too, but in World War I, and in World War I, I think he was, but he wrote this thing in books that he said, if you want to make war more humane, make it short. And that was his whole theory behind just being brutal and horrible. Was the only, like, war was just gonna be bad no matter what. Make it as horrible as possible right up front and end it as quickly as possible. And it seems like that theory of winning is common. Is if you're a piece of shit, if you go the low road, if you do all those things, that you'll get ahead. And that is something that I struggle with, because to me those victories would be so Pyrrhic. If you won that way, how would you feel good about being there? But some people do, and I don't know, I'm curious about that. And maybe again, that's why we're not fighters, because we're into this kind of co-creation of how amazing people can be. And I see that even in violence, even in fighting.
Well, even looking at records don't tell you the full story. You know,
No way.
you and me, I think why we bonded early on is that we see the gray spaces in life.
Yeah.
And with a win-loss column, it's either yes or no. It's binary. It's up or down. It's you won or you lost.
Right.
Maybe you got DQ or there's a no contest. But like,
actually, Gunnar Nelson's a good example of that in this last UFC, because his fight against Leon Edwards, which Edwards won by split decision, Gunnar Nelson, like, I think he ended up near the end of the fight on top, full mount, doing strikes. You know, it was just, you can't, the record does not tell the whole story at all.
Right.
At all.
No, I mean, that's definitely true.
I also like when you said gray space, by the way. I heard grace space. And I just like that idea. The spaces, the gray spaces are where the grace spaces are. It's pretty nice.
That's not wrong at all, man.
Pretty
Like,
clever.
I mean, I try to live in that grace space because like, here we go into our
Really
mental
nice.
health
Well,
podcast.
I'm so sorry. I derailed us a bit, but let's get back. Let's finish up Bisping.
Sure. This will be a very abbreviated version of the look back in Michael Bisping.
Yeah.
But
He
let's at least
inspired all of that. I don't think that's
No, it's never a
necessarily bad.
waste. It's never a waste. Thank you, Michael Bisping, for an incredible career and inspiring us to sort of go down this rabbit hole that Jarrett and I tend to go down. So as far as his training, you know, he started early and often, and he had his first fight as an amateur at 15 in an NHB competition.
Oh yeah,
which is kind of crazy. I mean, me at 15. I was an idiot. I was an idiot until last year. I was an idiot
He was
until
probably
yesterday.
an idiot too.
Yeah, exactly. So he was doing a NHB, for people who are unfamiliar, no holds barred. It was a precursor to what is now mixed martial arts, or like kind of similar to Vale Tudo. If you are Vale Tudo, if you are from Brazil. So he started early. He was definitely along the lines of definitely falling in line with being a fighter. You know, he now has currently holds a rank of a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which
blows my mind.
Yeah, especially because he doesn't rely upon it, but you know, that doesn't mean that, you know, he's been training in some form of jiu-jitsu for, in more the Japanese style, at least, and, you know, when he was starting at 8, but he definitely trained on, it's listed here under Brady Fink. Started in 2004 and called it quits in 2018 due to his eye injuries, which we will detail. I don't know if you're aware about like his detached retinas and all those things.
I heard about that.
Yeah, so like he's definitely been doing a lot more commentary over the years, and I think he's great as a commentator.
He's great as a commentator.
I love him. I love his energy. I love what he brings to the podium, to the news desk. He brings great energy and is super insightful.
Oh, I was going to say about the brown belt thing too.
Yeah.
I know it's, again, rank means so many different things, different places. And now even in jiu-jitsu, rank is starting to mean more and more different things.
Sure.
Because I guess things, just as it grows, you can't help it. It starts to water down a little bit.
Sure.
People want belts. It's, it makes sense. When I started, and I think to some degree still this is true in some spaces of the sport, like we just said, he's a brown belt and his teacher's a brown belt. In jiu-jitsu, back when I started, purple belt was basically a black belt. Purple, brown, and black was like those. If you were a purple belt, you could fight at the level of brown and black belts typically.
You'd be competitive, yeah?
Yes. I think it would just be not a surprise if either one of those would tap each other out. The higher ranks had to do with your ability to teach, your breadth of knowledge, perhaps how you express yourself individually, if you have your own unique approach that people could say that's their signature game. There's so many other aspects of just how you comport yourself, how you are in the gym.
Mat time. Like
Mat time.
How you performed in tournaments, all that stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff factors into like what makes those higher, what separates a purple from a brown or a black belt. But just that in that particular sport, being a brown belt is like he's good. And the fact that he started learning under a brown belt also back in the day, and still now, purple was when you could kind of start teaching. If you were out in the middle of nowhere, not like we're in LA or New York or something that has a ton of big schools. And now most major cities will have a good school that a black belt will teach at. But for a while, purple belts, it was not uncommon for purple belts to be opening schools.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just to be teaching. If you're in the middle of whatever, you were at a level you could teach. I mean, I started teaching when I was blue belt, a little bit, which is
that's how you and I, yeah,
a little wacky.
Yeah.
But anyway, this just to say more of the athletic stuff. Simple stuff works. Like if you know a double leg or a single leg takedown and a 1, 2, 3, that's not very complicated.
3-piece.
If you only knew a jab across a hook, a roundhouse kick, and a takedown, you could fight.
Most people.
Like, and then if you just add athleticism and timing and all that stuff, if that's all you were allowed to use, that's kind of all of fighting.
Everything else is kind of extra.
A teep, arguably, a straight kick of some kind. But the rest of it is just, how do you take those
components?
They say that about music. Is music 12 notes, right? Fa sol na 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 do re mi fa sol.
You're talking to somebody who's been playing guitar for 20 years. Why would I know any of that?
What's a basic scale?
Yeah, you're
12?
asking the wrong guy. I think it's 12.
I think
16 notes.
But basically, all it is what do you do within those notes?
Yeah, the notes haven't changed over time.
And that's the same thing with fighting. Is it's the difference between a fighter, like an athletic fighter who goes in prize fights, and a martial artist or just somebody who trains or whatever is, I don't know, sometimes just a mix of a lot of little subtle differences and just straight up horsepower.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
All right. Sorry.
No, absolutely. Listen, Michael Bisping, at the age of 18, he decided to actually pursue fighting semi-professionally. Actually, I lied. So at 18, he decided to abandon martial arts to go get a real job.
Oh.
And he tried to have a real job for a number
Doing
of
what?
years. So he had a number of jobs. I heard him detail some of his amazing adventures. I believe it was Theo Vaughn's podcast that he had him on there, and he was talking about his adventures in, he worked in a slaughterhouse, he worked in factories, demolition companies. He was a postman for a number of years. He worked in sales. But probably my favorite job of his that he had was that he was a nightclub DJ.
Oh, yeah. That's real good.
Yeah. Especially, I think this was like probably the early rave era of like the 2000s.
Yeah.
Which would have been amazing to see Michael Bisping.
Amazing. In England.
That's
like,
I
drum
was in
and bass.
Yeah,
like
I was in
real
England
dubstep.
in
Ooh.
'99. I did my junior year abroad in England.
Oh my God.
There is a chance I could have seen DJ Michael Bisping.
There's a chance. Was he just as Bisping? Was he the Count?
It would have been
DJ
better if
Count?
he was. From what I recall, he was just his own name. Yeah, he was just like DJ Michael Bisping.
So good.
So he had a number of jobs.
But he returned to creative arts also.
To the creative arts. Yes, he definitely. Well, Later on in life, yes, he definitely did. I want to talk a little bit more about his fighting career, though, because I was first introduced to him in The Ultimate Fighter. So The Ultimate Fighter 3, that was 2006.
Yep. I remember that. That's how I found out about him, too.
Yeah, and that was, he was training, that was when they were training under coaches, and he was training under Tito.
That was that season.
Yes. And so that meant that he was coaching against
Tito Liddell, right? Tito
was
and
it
Chuck. Wasn't it Tito and Chuck?
I think so.
Fucking funny.
Yeah, so great. He won his first couple of fights. He became the light heavyweight winner of The Ultimate Fighter. He was the second person to do that. So, like, that's how he sort of came into big consciousness. Was he was like, oh, this guy's a light heavyweight fighter, and here we go. He is the next great light heavyweight. 5 months after winning Tough 3, he started to really get back into UFC as a real professional and started winning fights left and right. He started working his way through some of the early journeymen of the UFC. Like, if you remember Eric Ravishing Red Schaefer, if you remember Elvis Sinosic, that's when the UFC really started trying to make headway into England. I believe, that fight actually took place in Manchester, England, which Manchester, England, they were definitely trying to bank on his persona and really sort of drive inroads with the UFC there. He had some iconic fights at UFC 78 against Rashad Evans, who Rashad Evans was definitely surging at that point. And he actually...
Rashad Evans is big, too. What weight class did they fight at?
No, they fought a light heavyweight at 205.
Damn, yeah.
So this is before he started cutting down to 185, right? Which is definitely later on in his career when he's like, okay, I'm not winning against these light heavyweights. And the sport is starting to pass him by just a little bit. But Rashad Evans was just, definitely surging at this point when he started going on that huge win streak. A little bit of a controversial loss. It was his first loss as a professional by split decision. One of the more iconic, so Bisping, being English and being a shit talker, is highly entertaining on the mic. And he had a great fight with Henderson, with Dan Henderson.
Yeah.
And he was featured as one of the fighters on The Ultimate Fighter. And Dan Henderson, we can do an episode on him too. His amazing fights in Pride in the UFC.
Early
champion days. He was the 185-pound champion in the UFC. And I think in Pride he fought at 205 back in the steroid era. Well, back in Pride.
Yeah.
To be fair. So at the conclusion of the show, they fought together at UFC 100. UFC 100, perhaps one of the greatest cards of all time. UFC 100.
Wow.
John Fitch, Paulo Thiago, officially the main event. But here's where it was really, the real main events were right here. Heavyweight fight, Brock Lesnar, Frank Mir, Georges St. Pierre against Thiago Alves, Dan Henderson, Michael Bisping.
Oh, yeah, dude.
And then even...
Holy shit.
Yeah, it keeps going because you have Akiyama, you have Sexyama against Alan Belcher.
Yeah, Mark Coleman fought Stephan Bonner? What the fuck?
John
Jones fought on that card against Jake O'Brien.
Who?
Yeah,
exactly.
who? Oh, Dong Hyun Kim. He fought.
Jim Miller fought Mac Danzig. Tom Lawler, CB Dalloway.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that was a wild card. Damn.
Yeah. Huh. All amazing fighters. But what ended up happening was an amazing back and forth fight between Bisping and Henderson. Now, keep in mind, the shit talking had been going on all season, all leading up to this fight. And Bisping gets caught by an H-bomb, right? And Jared, I'm going to show you this clip just to give you a little bit of context.
Oh, my God. Oi! Oh, that was the big Superman one thing. Oh, yeah.
Here is the knockout. You see, as he circles, you catch him on the button. Did you know he was out?
Oh, I remember that.
So I was Team Hendo at this point for sure, just because the shit talking was kind of one-sided, and Henderson is just kind of like, oh, I'm just an everyman.
Yeah.
He catches him with that big H-bomb over the top, setting it up with the low kick, just sort of take his attention down low, hits him with that H-bomb, out on his feet, leaves the ground.
I mean, it's like WWE.
It really is.
A full-on flying elbow from the top rope.
Except it's a right hand from Dan Henderson, which makes it that much worse into the canvas. You know, you can't say anything more than that would have been just a tremendous amount of CTE and head trauma. It hurts. It was so satisfying at the time, but now hurts so bad.
Just kept fighting though too.
Yeah. A quote, I fought Dan Henderson in 2009 and I lost, and that was UFC 100. UFC 100 was the biggest pay-per-view the company's ever done. 1.6 million pay-per-view buys, watched all over the world, and of course I get knocked out cold after talking tons of smack leading up to the fight. So I got my just desserts in that one. After the fight, I don't remember anything. I remember being in the showers, and I don't have a clue what was going on. I was saying to my manager at the time, I can't be knocked out because I'm not fighting for another 2 months. What the hell are you talking about? And then these guys come and go, Michael, we need to take you to the hospital. I'm like, I'm not going to the hospital. And then I'd say, what's going on? And I'd just keep repeating myself.
Oh, dude.
Just a little reminder, the sport's real.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah.
Fought Vitor Belfort.
So when he fought Vitor Belfort, the reason why I bring this fight up, you know, he lost the fight, TKO, got hit with a head kick. But that's not the important part. What really sort of stood out to me is the detached retina that he suffered in his right eye as a direct result of that fight. And he wasn't sure if he was going to have to retire at that point. And after a year away, he fought Tim Kennedy, roughly April 2014. He lost the fight. You know, his vision was still definitely compromised. And he's rather open about that. Bisping's story continues, though, when he stepped up on 17 days' notice to fight Luke Rockhold for the second time, UFC 199. 100 UFCs have almost transpired since that H-bomb knockout, right? He won. He beat the unbeatable Luke Rockhold.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Luke Rockhold was demolishing people left and right. He's tall. He's good looking. He's chiseled.
Yeah, and he
got confident.
And it was that short notice thing again, too. I don't... Fighters just seem to perform best when they got nothing to lose.
Yeah, when they're just like, oh, I don't have time to overthink this. Great, I got 17 days.
And as spoilers, as like, I know I'm not supposed to win this fight. Watch this.
I'm coming in with nothing to lose. And he was the first British UFC champion when he beat Luke Rockhold. And, you know, that guy, he came in as such an underdog. It was incredible.
Totally.
And no one, including myself, ever saw that happening. I was like, listen, if Bisping wins, it'll be by unanimous decision in a wrestle-fuck sort of like championship sort of round. But you know what? That knockout was just so amazing. So it was like, oh man, Bisping's for real. He's still relevant in the sport.
That was what I think. It's funny because I was getting a little bummed when we were talking about like injuries and these things that happen to these people, and you just get so broken down. But there's something still very inspiring, especially from Bisping's specific story, in this idea that that's what I thought about him too. I was like, this guy's getting old for this sport. He's done, dude. He's had his prime moments, and to see somebody as a seasoned fighter come back and still win against top level talent, I don't know. That's what makes combat sports so dope.
Yeah. No, it's incredible too. He steps away for a little bit, comes back to fight Georges St. Pierre.
Yeah.
Wow. Never saw that one coming. That is the return of Georges St. Pierre after many years off.
Yeah.
Getting his brain refocused and recomposed. Jacked GSP catches him in the second round with a rear naked choke.
Yes.
But he was game. I argued that Bisping was getting the better of GSP in that fight, in that first round for sure.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think I agree. That was definitely after George St. Pierre started training with Henzo's team, which was Matt Serra's squad.
Right.
And his jiu-jitsu is so good.
So anyways, he suffered a second detached retina, which really ultimately forced him out of the sport. You know, he said, you know, there are quotes out there from him where he talks about how scary it was, but he's like, well, I've experienced this before as the second one was detaching. You know, he feels like he still has some unfinished business with some of the fighters. He would love to do it, but his health is ultimately more important. Which brings me to his acting career.
Yes.
I love him behind a sports desk. But may I show you his acting on one of my favorite shows of all time?
I would love that.
Here is Michael Bisping.
The Count himself.
In the 2017 version of Twin Peaks.
Oh. Here he is. He's like a top, like a prison guard. Yeah. Oh, he's just a regular security guard.
Hey, Tracy. Hey. You didn't have to bring it yourself. Aren't you supposed to be working?
Oh, no, I got off at 10. I can't come in?
That's right.
Shoot.
Oh,
Michael
is that
Bisping!
it? That's amazing! Dude, Michael
Yes.
Bisping for a one-line cameo in a David Lynch show. That's incredible.
You're telling me you wouldn't do that?
Of course I would. In fucking
Of
5
course I
seconds
would.
I would. I would do anything to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Incredible.
Now, of course, he also has a lot more notable roles in the 2017 classic. 2017 was a good year for Michael Bisping in his acting career. In Triple X, Return of Xander Cage. This is what I'm talking about. If I could see Michael Bisping in action movies, I would.
I think that's what he's kind of moving into, yeah.
No, I'm just encouraging Hollywood with all that pull that we have in the business
Oh, yeah.
to lean into the Michael Bisping genre.
Dude, hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, that was nice.
So there you go. Michael the Count Bisping.
Yeah, I feel like the most inspiring thing about him really is that that's a very Hall of Fame champion Rocky-esque thing to do. To basically fill a spot where the sport's passing you by, someone drops out of a fight, we're going to give this arguable minor legend of the sport, throw him the fight, he'll take it on short notice, and then he comes out and beats your boy. He beats the guy you've got on the come up that you're selling all this stuff, the polo model, Luke Rockhold, Ralph Lauren model, isn't he?
He was either
Something like
that. I
that.
think he was dating Ariana Grande. Or am I making that up?
I don't know, but he's definitely like a very pretty man.
He's very man pretty. Yeah.
And he just gets knocked the fuck out by the guy that you thought was a little bit over the hill.
Yeah.
Bisping being like, don't count me out.
This has been the Fight Stuff podcast. As always, I'm Zeke Rodrigues Thomas, and with me is Jarrett Sleeper. Jarrett, where can they find you on the internet?
I'm Jared Sleeper on Instagram and things. I might be changing that soon, but yeah, you just Google me, you'll find me.
I'm on Instagram. Zeke Thomas is rad, and of course, ZekeThomas.com for all your Zeke Thomas needs. Hey, Jarrett, where can people find the podcast online?
That's Fight Stuff Podcast on Instagram, where we post all of the viral clips of the week and maybe a little extra this week because I want to include some of that Masvidal shit talk and stuff.
Email address.
FightStuffPodcast@gmail.com. If you have any clips you'd like to share with us for viral clip of the week or subjects you think might be fun to hear about.
Yeah, even if you're not one of our significant others, you can send us fight clips for the viral
we'll accept.
Viral fight clip of the week.
We are on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher.
Welcome
now.
to Stitcher, everybody.
We are all over the place. So find us, listen to us. If you enjoy the show, please review it. And tell your friends.
Yeah. I grab their phones and have them subscribe, and hopefully they will make their way onto the podcast. And please share with everyone.
Yeah, we like it. We're gonna keep doing it. So join us.
Fight Stuff.
Thanks a lot, fight fans. See you all next week. If you enjoyed the podcast, subscribe. Give us nice reviews. It's so helpful to do that. Special thank you to Jason Scardamalia for this dope, lovely, fun-ass theme song.
What's up, Skip? Hey, back off! Back off! Go away!